Let's bring in former CIA officer Mike Baker. Took him off the list. Boy, that worked like a charm, didn't it?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, look, there's a lot of people I'm sure that are surprised, thinking, well, wait a minute, isn't North Korea already on the short list of state sponsors of terrorism? And the answer is yes, they were, as you pointed out. And then about 9-10 years ago, the Bush administration removed them for that very reason, in an effort to try to denuclearize the peninsula. And just like every other effort that we've had over the years, they were all ineffective. I mean, we are at this point because all those other previous actions were ineffective, and the North Koreans continued this march to perfect their weapons and ballistic missile capability.
Yeah, and as far as them being on the list or off the list, what is significant about that is it dictates what type of sanctions they're getting at the time, right? I mean, and this is the last few little shreds that we have left to sort of put a nail in the coffin.
That's exactly right. Look, I mean, some people will argue that, you know, this given how we've ratcheted up the sanctions effort recently, some people will argue, well, look, this just inflames the situation without, you know, realistically adding additional sanctions because we've already layered on so much. Well, frankly, that's a strange logic train. There's no reason not to clamp down as severely as possible in terms of adding as many sanctions as we can, and that's what this does. It just layers on some more ability to do this, particularly financial transactions. And so there's no reason not to do it. The idea that somehow the Trump administration just threw this idea out there. Look, they've been on this trip through Asia, and I can guarantee you that members of the administration have been populating this idea of the state-sponsored terrorism label with the Chinese authorities, with Japanese authorities, with South Korean authorities as they're on this trip. They don't, you know, that's how this works. Yeah. And so anybody who's complaining about this, I think, frankly, they probably fall in the camp that says anything this administration does, no matter what it relates to, is wrong, and they're just hoping they'll fail.
I saw, you know, there was an interesting distinction during the press availability today where Rex Tillerson said, I call this Operation Peaceful Pressure, and President Trump calls it maximum pressure. But make no mistake, we're talking about the same thing. I mean, it's kind of funny that they would label it and see it so differently. What's your take?
Yeah. Well, I call it extreme pressure. Yeah. So I've got even a different name for it. No, you know, it doesn't matter what the labeling is. What really matters is whether we are able to actually enact the sanctions, right? Past sanctions. The problem we've had, the reason why we're at this point with North Korea and their development of the weapons and missiles is because previous sanctions efforts were half-hearted. And in particular, the Russians, the Chinese, and others were able to circumvent them. Yeah. So what we've done, I think, recently, the reason I think there's some hope here is because we have seen some change in the Chinese mindset. There appears to be an understanding with the Chinese, to some degree the Russians, that now is the time. They actually have to come through and follow through with these sanctions. If they do that, this could have the desired impact.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.